One, another Wednesday, another wonderful evening for all of us. I can't wait for this amazing time. Everything you wanted to know about dogs, but you didn't have whom to ask with Sasha Reese, Wednesday, 9 o'clock on a regular basis. Today I'm going to take your questions as we got some of them through our messages. And I also want to start this with the type of the attachment that we actually develop with our dogs. Where these attachments come from and how do we interact with our dogs is not based on their will or their willpower or their stubbornness or whatever. It's based on very specific science happening within their brain. And if we do understand like which kind of physiological movement is actually happening in between amygdala, the part of the brain that picks up the signals and carries the very, very important memories from the past that can prevent the future from happening again, and then hypothalamus that stores all of those messages and hides a very important and specific memories that amygdala is actually looking for. So the action that the dog's gonna take will actually be in this correlation in between amygdala, hypothalamus, and prefrontal cortex. In that triangle, all the experience and all the movement of the dog behavior is actually happening. So which kind of relationship, because in order to make a movement, in order to get a body response, no matter at which level, we need to have three things. One is we need some kind of stimuli. We need a stimulus from the outside world that's gonna trigger a control center within the brain. And then that control center will send the signals into a muscle or into a gland to release either some hormone or to make a movement. So that's all what's happening. So if we wanna change our dog's behavior, we need first change what's going and happening within their brain. It's very important to understand that actually dogs' behavior actually in majority, like almost 80%, like more than 80, like 93% depends on circumstances around them, and only 3% of their genetic inheritance and breed and everything else that the dog's genome is handling when behavior is in question, because the dogs are very adaptable animals, and that's something that's part of their very important and significant survival mechanism. So they are very adaptable animals to the circumstances that they are placed themselves or the circumstances of the life place them in. So 92% of the dog's behavior depend on the surrounding of which humans that they live with make the most impact. This adaptability of the dogs comes from this very plasticity of their plasticity of their brain, because don't forget that that's what the dogs are forever. Wolf or canine, like a canine wolf puppies. So in that age where the dogs are actually evolutionary, like a buried in the wolf puppy that looks like a Great Dane of 7 or 8 years, or a wolf puppy that looks like a Chihuahua of 14 years old. All of that is very important to understand, that the genetic inheritance of the breed carries only maximum 3% of what the dog's gonna experience will put out as a behavior. Claiming anything else is very dangerous, because it's putting a lot of breeds under the penalty of the death sentences, because they got forbidden by laws and by in a lot of countries. The breeds are the target. If we claim anything else rather than the breed has predicted behavior less than 2%, we will look in the responsibility of how the dog behaves in humans that the dogs live in. So if you want to save dogs' lives, if you want to impact the people that are kind of impacted with this madness of the dog's behavior all over the globe, what's happening now in the UK is the lawmakers want to make XL bullies be forbidden for breeding. All of that thinking that the dog's behavior is outcome of some genetically modified and making creature makes these dogs of all breeds be targeted for these false claims that the dog's behavior is carried genetically. The possibility of the dog's behavior is carried genetically. Only 2%. If we work on those talents, if we express those talents, then those talents are going to be expressed and lived. But the humans have a humongous impact on the dog's behavior, over 98%, over 93%, 97%, let's say, precisely. So why is that like that? Why is that? Because the dogs have a very plastic way of the brain of them is very adaptable because that's part of their evolution. And if we remain in that silence and we remain with that knowledge, and how do we know that? How do we know that? I must say that the dogs are actually hijacked by the dogs enthusiasts, by the kinology, by the all kind of pseudoscience and pseudo trainers and psychologists, because you don't have actual school to learn about a canine behavior. You cannot learn about the dogs because the dog. Where would we learn about a real dog? What is a real dog? You cannot learn about a real dog's physiology and a real dog's behavior because any dog that we have an access to is already impacted by the humans evaluating the dog's behavior or impacting the dog's behavior. So the real canine behavior, like a dog behavior, cannot be evaluated easily. Which dog do we evaluate in order to learn about natural need of the dog so we fulfill their needs? We don't know nothing about the dog's needs. We know about other canine needs that live without influence of the humans. We don't know nothing about the needs of the dogs that lives outside of human reach. And how would we know that? Like when you read the studies about the animals, about the dogs, majority of those studies are written by the veterinarians who happen to be interested into a dog's psychology. But why the dogs are so fascinating and why the dogs should be importance of understanding the dog's behavior should exactly go in between, in a crossroad of the animal behavior and the human behavior. Usually veterinarians, zoologists, biologists, etiologists, the people that are studying the nature and the movements of the nature and the movements of the animals within the nature are not interested in a human psychology. On the other side, the people that are studying a human physiology and psychology are not even interested in learning zoological terms and looking after the genome of the wolves and things like that. So it's minor, like a very, very limited number of people you can find out there that are studying human psychology and animal psychology, crossing them in between, looking for the canine psychology. That's why we were able to develop such a nice influence, a nice lifestyle with the dogs, because we can adapt to them and they can adapt to us. That adaptability is the survival point of us both. It was in my life, because when I was a child, I suffered a humongous bullying within the family and my schooling and my friends and things like that. I was having a suicidal thoughts that I overcome only because I had dogs by my side. And I was always thinking, if something happens to me, who gonna care about my dogs that I was just, completely crazy about? And my Bobby was crazy about me. So, but the Bobby saved my life. And if saved my life, there is countless of the people outside there that experience the same thing. Abandoned by the people, finding this beautiful sense of love and acceptance within the animal kingdom. But now when you want to learn something about dogs, observing your own dog doesn't give you a possibility of subjective observation because we are emotionally entangled. On the other side, the scientist, for example, the zoologist and the etiologist, they don't care about the dog because the dog is domesticated animal. So zoologists are thinking about care about the dogs, about the wolves, about African wild wolves, African wild dogs, about dingoes, and all kind of animals that lives outside the reach and impact of humans. Because no one is interested in the psychology of the domesticated cow or chicken or psychology of the sheep or psychology of the pigs, because the Tyson impacted the way of how do we treat animals that are considered being machines to produce means for the human consumptions. That's how the zoology and veterinarian science and all of those sciences that we think are carrying the informations about the canine behavior and dogs' behavior are actually influenced by. You will see that, when you read a scientific study and then you see who wrote the study and you see that study actually is impacted and funded by the corporations that are actually producing dog food. How you can find their science, and then we talk about the dog should eat meat and dogs are carnivores and majority of, and then just read the label of your premium pet food that you're eating, the corn, rice, this, that, and you're gonna find you need the kako se kaže lupa, magnifying glass to find something that has name chicken, but doesn't say a chicken meat. It says chicken protein sourced from, diluted in, and all kind of other very interesting terms to describe amazing name for the bad food. So the dogs are left alone. Unfortunately, psychology of the dogs is unknown because the people learning about the dogs are not considering the crossroad where the dog actually has their physiology and behavior buried in. And that's a crossroad in between animal behavior and the human behavior. And there is a lack of scientists that are interested in both. And that's why a limited number of the scientific studies are done from observing dogs' behavior through the lens of the human behavior, because the human behavior do impact the canine behavior, dog's behavior, over 97%. So in order to come closer to the dog behavior, we need to understand, can I just fix this, please? We need to understand how and where from the dogs are coming in our life in order to get attached to the human. So in order to understand which kind of attachments the dogs can have towards human, we need to understand which kind of attachments the humans can have among themselves, because that's exactly which kind of attachments we create with the dogs. Because if I can say, I love my dog like I love none. I don't have a person in my life that I love as I love my dog. And I don't have such person in my life that loves me as my dogs love me. So in order to understand how that attachment happened, we need to understand which kind of attachment and where is the root of the attachments that emotionally happen in between a people, and then try to see how that attachment can translate to a human-dog interaction and relationship. So based on that theory of attachment, there is two major and two very big groups of attachments. It's secure attachment and insecure attachment. So it means there is a there is a positive attachment and negative attachment. So what does it mean, a positive attachment? Positive attachment is only happen if the person have a positive model of self and a positive model of others. So I think that my self-esteem is high and I value your self-esteem. I'll find myself in a positive mental attachment towards humans, towards myself. And why is that? Because my prefrontal cortex, that kind of gives me this ability to evaluate the circumstances I'm placed in, we look for the signals from amygdala and look for the memories hidden in hypothalamus to give me a sense of which kind of situation I'm finding myself in. Based on that situation, I'm gonna provide a reaction, because the reaction gonna be triggered by which kind of control centers in my brain gonna be awakened by the triggers outside myself. So if we want to place that in a sense of the dogs, in order for them to have a secure attachment toward humans, they need to have a positive model in humans that developed towards humans, not toward owners, toward others. And others, in a sense of the dog's survival, are the humans, including, as for the development of secure attachment in the humans, should be a mother, majority would be a mother, or the most important person that helped child survive the first couple of years, where actually child was so much dependent on someone. So it can be adoptive mother, it can be a mother, it can be grandmother, it can be grandfather, it can be father in the absence of mother. So all kind of person. So it's not necessarily the birth mother, but the person impacted the first glimpse of humans, of the baby understanding the world around them, and what gave to that baby sense of belonging, sense of secured, and sense of security and survival, right? And through that positive model of others, the baby developed a positive model of self. That, of course, depend on the surrounding relationship in between the humans within the family, relationship between the other people, that guardian person has with other people in their life. And that all impacts the development that actually will happen in this triangle. The hypothalamus, or actually the prefrontal cortex, would be like a nourishing place, and our like a mother or someone that carries us through the life. And then on the amygdala, we would have like all of these senses that we will look for those particular things that outside ourselves are giving us that sense of belonging. But that also doesn't necessarily need to be like a positive experience, unfortunately. So if we develop a positive model of others and positive model of self, we develop a very secure positive attachment. So the other one is that we have a positive model of self, but negative model of others. And that that kind of development that places us in the situation of avoiding others. We are very good with self and we understand the self, but we avoid others because we have a negative model about the others. So that avoidant takes us to kind of avoid the situation, avoid relationship, move ourselves away from the interaction with the people. Next possibility to be developed is a positive mental about the positive model about the others, but a negative model about the self, and that's where actually we find anxious behavior. And finally, we can have a negative model of self and negative model of others, where we will find a fearful connection and fearful attachment to the world around us. The same concept is actually in relationship of dogs towards humans. The dogs have a same model of developing positive model of others and positive model of self that gives them, so that in order to analyze this, in order to agree that we should go and perceive this possible theory into relationship of dogs as well, human-dog relationship, we need to question and answer one thing. Are the dog conscious? Are the dog conscious? Zoologists and a lot of zoologists, veterinarians, in order to have answer to the question of are the dog conscious, we need to think about what actually the consciousness actually means. The broad definition of the consciousness means that awareness of self, that gives possibility to that self-awareness, gives us possibility to experience and express emotions and be aware of emotions as a part of our existence. So I understand the presence of myself within the place or within the surrounding I am actually placed in. So experience of the outside world and understanding the connection of the outside world from the inside, observing outside from inside. And the question why I always talk about this, and it's very intriguing to answer these questions. Why animal consciousness it's such a big taboo, and why the mainstream science and the big science is actually still confronting talking about animal consciousness, even though a lot of scientific studies are made on this, but kind of in the mainstream science, they are considered like a pseudoscience, even though the people that were talking about and advocating of animal consciousness are highly respected university professors. But you cannot advocate that if you say that the dogs are conscious, that leads, because the dog is an animal, then you cannot separate dog from other animal kingdom. Of course, because they are not separated from the animal. Even if you want to say the dogs are mammals or dogs are carnivores or omnivores based on the food they eat. But what's very interesting, the dogs are mammals, like we are, like they are, and they have a spine and they have a brain. And that spine and brain and physiology, how the nervous system operates, is almost exactly the same as the humans. So if we do have a consciousness based on the physiology of our nervous system that we have, why is not to think that the dogs have their consciousness as well? And then on the other side, why the biology, etiology, physiology, veterinarian science is still deliberating on that is because the consciousness would involve some metaphysical terms like a soul, emotions, and conscious experience of the world and the life. If that is done for the dogs, that it cannot be taken away from cows, from sheep, from pigs, chickens, and everything else that humans exploit in order to create food. So that's where I think still answering the questions of the, human consciousness, animal consciousness, including the dog consciousness, is still political and economical question and to be answered. But it's very crucial, finally, to understand the canine behavior and the dog's behavior specifically, so we finally end up having this forever circle of abandoning dogs and shelters getting packed and dogs getting euthanized and dogs breeds getting banned and things like that, based on false perceptions. The false perceptions because no one is doing the studies from the perception from which the dog's behavior should be evaluated. The dog behavior is evaluated on a crossroad of the animal behavior and the human behavior. There is the hidden message, and there is a hidden agenda of which rules we should implement in the dog's behavior. And that's what I'm talking in my upcoming book about the dogs and awakening, where I talk about these ways of attachment towards humans, and how these attachments are developed within the dog's brain in the triangle in which the human development of the attachment toward other humans and the world around us happens, and that's prefrontal cortex, amygdala, and hypothalamus. So with all of that said, About the Dogs and Awakening, like second. Yeah, the one is published, but I keep a ti si uvek super sa tvojim pitanjima. We're gonna like update the one because that wonderfully like blends into about the Dogs and Awakening, because I think it's crucial to understand. And we have a wonderful for example, why the dogs and humans can develop such an amazing relationship. Because the dogs are able to blend themselves into a resonance with the humans and access their morphic field, a field of family. And that's done through the very interesting interaction in between human brain and dog brain. And that's one, there is a published book, and the wonderful book of the Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, based on his countless and thousands of the study. The name of the book is Dogs That Know When Their Owners Are Coming Home. And it says that the dogs, same like would be in a pack of the wolf. For example, in the nature, the mother and the pack would go hunt, and oftentimes it would take them like tens of miles away from the den, right? And then the puppies would stay in the den. And then the how are they connected? How the mother and the pack know where the den is if they go like 60 miles away from the den? And how, for example, the same thing is to question when the deer, the mother deer, is going away from the Bambi, from her little baby, and she goes away and miles away, eats, and then perfectly comes back where, and then now you would say that it might be a sense of smell, but Rupert Sheldrake actually said it's nothing to do with the senses, it has to do with the field. So the field connects a family together. So when you actually have a field that contains a family of puppies and older humans or older canines, then when the pack goes hunting and the puppies remain in den, the field doesn't get broken. So there is no field in which the puppies are left, and the field that goes and created out from the pack that's gone. What connects is actually the field is stretching. So in that stretching of the field, the energy remains. And that is actually how it's possible with us to communicate with the dogs, and even if we are not there. Even that we don't have those qualities of our life awakened, the dogs does, because they know. And the study, you can watch it, I think on YouTube, you have also a video, you can see how the dogs that knows when their owners are coming back. And the Dr. Rupert Sheldrake experimented with all kind of timings, and the people would take another rounds to home, and the people would take another timing to home, and then they would come back unannounced, and all kind of those things. And you would always see that the dogs will 100% would know when their owners are coming back, even if it's unpredicted, unannounced, and taken a different turn. So that's what he said. What connects the dogs and the humans is field, the family field. So now we need to learn about how the dogs are actually entering the field of the human family, and the answer might be this attachment that's created in between dogs and humans. Attachment is created based on relationship in between this triangle of amygdala, hypothalamus, and the prefrontal cortex. We might have a difference in the size of the prefrontal cortex, and we might challenge the construction of selling that if we have like a entire frontal cortex of the human brain takes like 1/3 of it, so 30% of that, and out of those and the prefrontal cortex where actually decision making is happening is maybe 12%. And if we have 12%, then the dogs might have like 3 to 5%, but they still have it. And once they have it, they're using it. But because they do not ego trip, and they do not that egoistic sense of that, they are using the use of the dog's prefrontal cortex of 3% is much more than use of the human prefrontal cortex of 12%. So that's where we need to look for, like how to develop a positive model of self of the dog and a positive model of others to the dog in the dog's mind. So the dog develops a secure attachment towards humans. On the other side, we can also evaluate the dog's behavior through the outcome. So I can ask, like, is my dog anxious? Is my dog fearful? Is my dog avoidant? For example, anxious dogs are hyperactive. They have all kind of source of anxiety, separation anxiety, anxiety of walking, anxiety of all kind of, name whatever you want as an anxious, panic attacks of all kind. It might include some high-end, like a high-end source of attacks, like anxious attacks, and maybe even the epileptic attacks. If the dogs have, when the anxious behavior is happening and expressed, when the dogs have a positive model about the humans, but a negative model about themselves. That might be that we do not. Why do they think about that? Because the anxious dogs must find, because every single mother and every single parent thinks that their children are the perfect ones. And anxious behavior often happen when the parent have a negative model of self, but a positive model of the child. And then what happens, like what makes to the human moms the most biggest anxiety is when the people are away, like when children are away, when the children are going out, when the children are not home on time, when children are doing their own life. And then when the parents are thinking high of their children and low about themselves, the anxiety is inside the behavior. So if we think that the dogs might switch this thing, they think that we are perfect human babies that they need to care about. So they think that we are babies, and as babies and to the parents, babies are always perfect. But when the parents fail to have qualities to protect their babies, then the anxiety happens. So if the dogs are in feeling that they are our parents, or they are the leaders of our community or our fact or our family, then they're going to feel a negative, they don't have to model themselves in order to protect us. And that's what leads to anxious behavior. On the other, and that can be expressed in all kind of anxious behavior. On the other side, if the dog has a negative model about themselves, and they don't trust their humans, and they think that the dogs cannot prevent humans, the humans cannot prevent dogs, that's what leads to a fearful behavior, and the fearful behavior can lead to a aggressive behavior, because out of fear, the human and the mind and all kind of the behavior is when the fear is in present, then the brain chooses three possible outcomes. It's a runaway, freeze, or fight. So it's a flight, fight, freeze, fight. So these three models are in place. So the dogs that develop aggression towards, regardless, are the animals or other dogs or other humans, are actually in fearful state. Fearful state means negative model of self and negative model of others. So negative model of the dog about himself and what is their possibility to protect the family, but also they lack a trust of the family that there is someone enough capable of providing protection for the entire family, and they remain fearful. And the fourth model, when the dogs are raised by the very strong family as a breeder, and they are let to be taken by the people that the dogs doesn't trust. So dogs are those are the dogs that are developed by the mothers. So they have a very nourishing mothers in their when they were like babies. And when the dogs have that kind of relationship within their mothers and among the siblings, they develop a very positive model of self. And then the humans on the other side, they develop a very negative model of the humans, and that model of behavior provides avoidant behavior. Those dogs are actually avoiding contact. Those dogs are actually the ones that you find are not pooing and peeing outside. Those dogs you probably would find that are, they are holding their toilet until they do not come back, and they would do it in home because they don't want to be heard. They don't want to be seen. They avoid outside world. So with this said, development of the positive or negative attachment is based on prediction. Are the dogs able to predict human behavior, or dogs are unable to predict the human behavior? If we do not communicate through the rituals, if we do not clearly communicate with our dogs the messages, especially if we have families where the husband is talking one thing and the wife is talking the other way, the husband allows on a sofa, the wife doesn't allow the sofa, one allows this and one, then the dogs are actually developing unpredictable. The dog cannot predict what's right, what's wrong. The control center within the brain cannot predict which action should be taken, and those dogs end up having insecurity, and that leads to the fearful, anxious, or avoidant behavior. All depends on in which crossroad of this map of attachment the dogs and a family, the self of the processing of the emotions of self and others is taking place inside the dog. The only way to have a dog that has a secure attachment, so it's very positive attachments towards humans, dog need to have a predicted way. The dog can predict what the humans are doing, and the only 4 things the dogs need to do in order to predict, so that they are very sure that you're going to provide food no matter when, but you're going to provide the food. You're going to protect when it's needed. You're going to be there for the social interaction and in order to interact with the dogs, like to play and to socially engaged in a relationship. And you have a very strong sense of union. So whenever you unite or reunite and opposite of reunite, depart from the home, you are doing it with the full strength, for the full dignity of the respected and dignified leader, because you're gonna go out there in the dangerous world. Why would you go out from the home? We would go out only because of 3 reasons. One is to look for the food. We don't necessarily need to hunt, but we need to look for the better source of the food, easy accessible, less energy to be used in order to find the food. We need to protect that source, and we need to mark so the others would know where our territory is. All of those 3 things are very life-threatening and dangerous. And if the dog doesn't trust us, that we can perform that kind of performance up to our task, they're going to develop one of 3 different attachments. They're going to be anxious, they're going to be fearful, or they're going to be avoidant. Either of these 3 places to be creates problematic behavior in the dogs that we want to take care of. The very important thing actually is to understand that all of this is having the different outcome. Anxious behavior, fearful behavior, avoidant behavior has different ways of behaving. But in a core and a solution for all of these and all the let's say all of these challenges that can arise as a negative behavior issues, the behavior issues that can arise, this anxiety, the fearfulness, avoidant can be actually expressed in more than 100 different symptoms that we know as a bad dog behavior. If you would know that all of these symptoms might be expressed in the different ways, but the root cause is the same. Dogs doesn't trust themselves and they doesn't trust their people. Either some of these combinations can be mixed-matched in order to see which of those 3 different categories we can categorize their behavior and the symptoms of their behavior. But what's the most important, as the root cause is the same, the solution is the same as well. Communicate 4 rituals. Go on our webpage, pureloveandharmony.com, and take take your like a doggy parent manual and go after the rituals that we explained there. What kind of way of communication you need to develop, you need to establish in order to get into this beautiful place of developing with your dog positive attachment, positive secure attachment that is predicting your answers to these 4 callings that the dogs are expecting us to do, that we provide them security, that will lead them into the serenity of their behavior. On the other hand, if we don't do that, then the negative attachment is happening. They cannot predict our behavior, our responses to the circumstances and all kinds of threats. They end up anxious, fearful, or avoidant. They become finally actually expressing these 3 categories of the possible mental state into hundreds and hundreds different behavior challenges that we can face in our everyday life. Okay, so I think I would leave this wonderful evening here, because I think that by answering this and opening this to answer the question, I think I touched based on the majority of the questions we asked, because they will be just about the dog sleeping, about the dog being aggressive, about the dog being anxious on a lot of levels. So I was trying to see which kind of information I need to share with you in order to answer all of your questions with the one simple explanation. And I think this what I actually touched base during this presentation or during this live is an amazing way of us understanding the canine behavior, the dog behavior, the evolution of the dogs, and the connection between humans and human psychology and the canine psychology, because it's not about the human and it's not about the canine, it's on a crossroad. That's why the dog is actually left alone outside the other animals that zoologists are interested to research about, left alone by scientists that are interested into human behavior because they are animals, so they are not interested in them. So what I saw in my life by working and researching about dogs for more than 35 years outside the mainstream education that I actually was trying to undergo, because I enrolled a veterinarian university. But once I started to learn about industrial farming on the animals and how we need to look at the cows and the pigs as a machines to produce a human food, and we just need to think about the genetic way of making more meat in a faster way, in the less space. I just couldn't let my brain be infected with those informations. I just, not that I didn't trust it, I said no, but I knew myself, and I'm very thankful to my late mom and grandma that were raising me in a sense to be aware of my weaknesses and my faults and my strengths. My mind is my biggest strength, but I know how mind can be weak if exposed to information that you need to learn in order to make yourself, go through some program. That's the name of in order to finish university, you need to go through the program. And that program is actually doing what the word program it says. It's programming you to trust, believe, and see the world from that perspective. And I knew that if I would undergo this education, and if I would let myself even for the slightly, the last grade, let's say, what's the last grade, like F or E or whatever, what's the last to go through? C, B or C, let's say, I wouldn't be able to pass the test because I would just fight everything I learned. I didn't want to learn about that. And that actually gave me a freedom to research. I didn't stop going to the university. I was following nice professors, the classes I want to take. I was talking to them, but I never graduated from the veterinary university. That I do have an institute, like Pure Love and Harmony Institute. I'm founder and the president now. That we study human dog interaction on all levels, behavior, nutrition, and the coat care, in order to create a new paradigm out of which the dogs would not suffer next to humans, neither humans next to a man, or the humans next to dogs. And we would end up this pandemic of the shelters that are packed with the dogs, shelters that are euthanizing dogs because there is no financial possibility to care about them. It's not a hotel for 16 years of life of dogs. And then the humans that doesn't know and don't have right informations on which they should base their decisions about how to really care for their dogs in the beautiful way of developing a secure attachment towards each other. With that said, I'm gonna say thank you for your beautiful time we spent today together, and I'm looking forward to your next Wednesday, 9 o'clock Eastern time, with another episode of this wonderful show, Everything You Wanted to Know about the dogs, but you didn't have whom to ask. I wish you all the best, and until next